Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Board, the Town of Kennebunkport Planning Board for September 20th. We have all but one. Mr. Francis is on vacation, of all things. And anyway, so one of you fine gents down there, we'll take turns on voting. So, all right, so that's the attendance. The minutes, we had a nice set of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, well, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
In favor?
In favor.
In favor.
All right, good.
I did.
So that's approved.
Nice.
Which brings us to the agenda. Our first item is 230703, 63 Pier Road. And someone representing Lisa Vickers is here.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tim Forrester. Let's see, I'm flycatcher right now. So here on behalf of the applicant, and we had our last meeting. You had a relatively short to-do list, I believe, which was to include a note on the plans indicating half-inch deckboard spacing, as well as to correct a typo on sheets, on the main sheets 1 and 2, where it said 70 and should have said 68 feet in length of the proposed pier. So, sorry?
A little bit louder.
You got it. Is this on? Yep. So we changed the plans accordingly, made those additions for you, and I think that was all we had to do.
All righty. Now, George, you're the lead, but you weren't here for the...
I wasn't here. I watched the meetings, but so I will follow up at the end.
Okay.
That's okay, because I know some of you had some pressing questions, and you should go ahead.
Okay. All right. You defer to your neighbor here.
No, no questions.
No questions?
No.
I'm good, other than, as I told you the last time, I don't like the 6 foot wide, but that's, that's what it was. Stuck with it.
I agree.
So,
So I was going to ask just some clarifying questions, actually,
Absolutely.
specifically about that. So I remember the storm well. I had a tree through my roof. We all had no problems and damages, and in this case, the dock washed away.
Yep.
Which is horrible. And you could just rebuild the dock exactly the way it was, no historical recreation, et cetera.
Correct.
But, and you also know, I know you looked at locating a dock that was conforming in another spot on the property, but that really wasn't a possibility either. Why not rebuild the dock exactly the way it was?
The main reason was elevation. The existing dock was too low in elevation, and it would overtop on a storm surge.
Yeah.
And that's
As it did.
part of what led to its demise at the last
Yep.
storm. So you can rebuild a structure in kind through DEP under a permit by rule process, but you're not allowed to change length, width, or height. So in order to raise the elevation, you have to seek a new permit from the DEP.
Right.
So that's what we did, but we also didn't want to make it any more non-conforming than it already was. So the height isn't necessarily one of the conforming criteria, but its overall length is. So we look to bring the permanent structure back as much as we could.
Right.
Well, I'll step back. When you raise the elevation of a structure, then you need to extend it further back into the upland in order to
Right.
make it touch ground. So our original plan showed that with, and we basically said we're keeping the same length, but we're adding a longer ramp. The float's going to land in the exact same spot, but we've pulled the pier back and,
Right.
and sent it into the upland.
The permanent part of the structure.
Which is a mechanism for making it not any more non-conforming than it already is. But then after our last meeting and speaking with the owner, I said, hey, we can just make this whole pier shorter and just add steps in the beginning, and that solves the problem and keeps us in the exact same footprint.
And keeps it from being, what's the right term, less non-conforming? By changing the length
I
of
think
that
so. I
structure.
mean, yeah, we're not, yeah, we're not messing with the conformity of it at all because we're in its footprint.
And I'm not certain, but if you were going to build a new one, it would
Yes.
likewise also have to be at a higher elevation than what the old
Yeah,
one was.
nobody would
They couldn't
build a
build a
new
new one.
dock at that.
Right, couldn't build a
Existing
new
Still
one.
in
elevation.
VR
But-
zone, so
but you-
couldn't build a new
You
one if
put,
they tried.
you put handrails on it. Why'd you decide to add the handrails?
Well, I think every pier should have handrails, and in fact, no contractor today is gonna go out there and rebuild that and not put handrails on it. Your
Right.
standard building code is anything over 30 inches needs a handrail.
And that's
Docks
what the
are always-
regulations mean, say that you have to have a handrail.
Yes, yeah,
But if you were to build a new one, it would have to be 4 feet.
correct.
And we've had a number of docks that have come before the board over the years. There was one, I think was 8 feet, that was, down on the river. And it was an old commercial dock, had people passing back, probably, with
Yeah.
buckets of fish at some point. But they went down to a 4 feet. Why did you choose to stay at the 6 feet?
That was the applicant's choice. So they have, an existing structure, there's sections in the ordinance that allow to reconstruct that, and.
But you're not reconstructing it.
We're staying within its footprint and making a structure that's not any more non-conforming than what was originally there. So I pressed them on it, but they're adamant that, they have that structure and that's what they'd like to keep. We really wanted to keep the width of all the things. So I made every other concession I could.
They're even changing the width of the board, so.
I increased the deck board spacing to half an
Yeah.
inch as required. We kept it in the same footprint. We pulled it back. We made the ramp longer. So from the resource, there's less structure that sticks out into the river.
Yeah.
So I did everything I could to work with the applicant and try to get it as conforming as possible.
Except for that. That's the one piece that's left that's not.
That's the one that the property owner held his hat on and said, no, I have a right to do this, and that's what I'd like to do.
Okay? I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, we all had that problem,
I don't.
because it's completely unreasonable on the part of your, I'm sorry, it is completely unreasonable to not try to make it as conforming as possible, even though it's in a VR zone, so it hasn't got a chance of actually being permitted because of the water rate.
Understood.
So,
Have you received the permits that you need for that?
We have.
Okay.
so DEP has approved it.
Yep. Under DEP's rules, residential docks are a maximum width of 6 feet. I can't build a new residential dock wider than 6 feet under DEP. The town, Kennebunkport, maybe one or two other towns off the top of my head are the only ones that have a 4-foot width requirement.
Okay,
But that's a local requirement, 4 feet.
A local requirement, correct. Yep. I will add that the habitat underneath it is all ledge. It's all rock, and there's rockweed covered ledge. So in terms of the elevation relative to the width and shading impacts related to the structure, it's kind of minimal, because we're exceeding a 1-to-1 height to width even at 6 feet, and there's no intertidal vegetation below it that would possibly be impacted by shading.
okay. So, if that's all the comments we have at this point, this is
For public.
a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this topic, do we have any hands raised? We have no hands raised.
Jim, you stay
Okay,
there.
so I will close the public hearing. And I did get word from Werner today that while a brand-new dock needs to be approved by the selectmen, a replacement dock does not. So the selectmen have not weighed in on this as they don't have to apparently. So,
Okay.
okay,
Shall I make a motion to approve the application?
okay.
I know you don't want
I
to.
don't want to, but that's.
I'll second that, okay.
Okay. I'll take a vote.
Yes.
I'm going to abstain and let both of those guys vote.
Approve.
Approve.
Approved.
Approved.
There we go.
Thank you very much.
All right, and George, despite having not shown up for the last.
I watched it twice,
I didn't mean
Your
to.
Honor.
I
So
did
you-
everything
you
I
You
could.
still get to write finding effects for
That's
next time.
You guys all looked good.
Okay, so, surprise of surprises, now we have Atlantic Environmental.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tim
22.
Forrester with Atlantic
Atlantic
Environmental, here on behalf of the applicant. If we didn't tell you the last time, so I merged my company in with Flycatcher, so we're just phasing out a couple of these last Atlantic businesses. So this is a continuation of our last meeting. This is the Waha Family Limited Partnership at 22 Agamenticus Avenue. They're proposing to make some upgrades to, they have an existing vertical stone wall that's mortared together, and then some other areas that are undergoing erosion. My to-do list from the last meeting had, I believe, 2 or 3 different items. One was to include the septic system on the site plan. It's partially blocked off by the notes on sheet 1, but it's technically located on the adjacent parcel, which is owned by the same individuals. So that has been added to the plan as requested. The other comment, more significant, was related to FEMA maps and flood elevations. The current maps, I believe the application that we submitted with the maps are the current maps at the time. That has it's a V2 zone with an elevation of 13. And then the new proposed maps, that as well as a VE zone, but it has an elevation of 18 in this spot. So it's a difference of 5 feet. And the question from members of the board was, how would that potentially impact this project? Our proposed design has the top of the wall a foot above 13 feet, so we're at 14 right now. We'd have to go up an additional 4 feet in order just to get to 18. If you were to go out and look at the site and what that would actually mean, you probably wouldn't be able to see out of the front windows. To be frank, if the wall were built to that elevation, if they went through with that, I think they have bigger problems than constructing a wall than what would happen if it flooded to an elevation of 18 feet. I think the house would be in far more jeopardy than what the wall would accomplish. Having said that, our preference is to maintain as proposed. From a visual perspective, from a functional perspective, on the current standards, we do meet and exceed by 1 foot the FEMA zone.
Okay.
Well, I had one other question, remember?
Uh-oh.
It's difficult for me to figure this out. You're showing it's in zone Cape Porpoise East, and, I'm trusting your application, but I couldn't confirm that. I don't know if
Michelle was gonna help there.
I believe your planner answered that at the last
Okay.
meeting.
So, is it Cape Porpoise East or Square? Not that it's gonna make a lot of difference, but I'd like to be accurate.
I think I got the thumbs up last time that we had it correct.
Yeah,
So I
I
did-
believe that you did, but let me just.
It's in Cape Porpoise East. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it that way. It doesn't make a lot of difference. One thing I did notice was, I appreciate your map, your location map. And then I looked at the flood insurance rate map that you included with your application, but it's not actually for that portion. I know, it's not gonna make that much difference, but it might be nice to actually include the appropriate flood insurance rate map. Let me show you if I can find it in here again. You're showing.
Well, you're looking at this piece.
Yeah, you're showing it slightly farther around. You're showing it on the Fisher's Lane and this other one, Sumac Lane. So if you just come around a little bit. Yeah, well, okay, so here's this is, let me, hang on. Let me see if I can find it in here. I had it just a minute ago. Hang on. It's right here. It's right here.
This is a dysfunctional vote.
There we go. So, okay, so you can see it's Fisher's Lane and Sumac, see? And then you're actually right down here.
Nope. So
Yeah, you're right down here.
is,
Let me show you. Fisher's and Sumac, let me show you. Let me show you on your actual layout map.
Sure, yeah, that's
See,
the
you're
one.
right here. See, you're right there on this one and this one, but you come around, should come around a little bit farther.
Yeah.
Balance, come on.
See, it's actually got the roads named Fisher's and Sumac.
There's Seashore.
Yeah,
That's,
Okay.
that's it right there. We're on the right map.
I don't think so.
Yep, because it's improperly labeled on this map. They call this Seashore, not Agamenticus.
Well, there is, it's not Sumac? Is this, are you sure it's not Sumac?
I'm positive. I looked at it.
Okay.
I looked at it today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're calling Agamenticus Seashore. Whew, okay, it doesn't make that much difference because
Yeah.
we're still,
Yep. No, because
We're in the ballpark.
I was looking at both of these today in order to address your questions, and
Okay.
and as I laid them out and looked at, because this is their funky turnaround. If you look at the, go to our site plans.
yeah, right there?
Yeah. If you look at our site plans
Oh.
and then you look at their driveway,
Yeah,
the Google Earth image.
oh, yeah.
Yep. Back one more.
Oh, yeah.
See this loop in the driveway?
Oh, I see.
That's that
That's
loop
that
right
loop?
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so, thank you. All right. So, so I appreciate all the water elevations you showed in your drawing, but I think, is there a base flood elevation that applies to this? You know, you talked about the 13
Not
feet.
for a riprap wall. There's not.
But there is for
it's-
the V2 zone, there
Well,
should be.
there's a 13-foot elevation for the V zone. Yeah.
Yeah,
But regardless of the elevation, you know, their structure doesn't necessarily have to, I mean, riprap doesn't have to be above or below that technically. If it were a dwelling, then absolutely.
well, I mean, you referred to the house, so, okay, I mean, I'm just wondering if you wanted to add that. So, you alluded to one of the issues that's gonna come up, right? The house, eventually, there's gonna be some revised flood maps that are going to apply. The house is definitely, when the 100-year storm hits, is gonna flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess they know that, they don't care?
I wouldn't say they don't care. I would say they know that, they're aware of it, and this is as far as they want to go at this point.
Because the thought occurred to me, just a observation, that one thing that might assist, well, okay, let's back up one. So the issue here is overtopping during storms, which puts water in the lot. But then there's is there a velocity issue with water washing back toward the ocean, back toward along the wall?
That was not addressed at this point as a problem. So right now, you get spray that hits the wall because it's a vertical wall and it
Yeah.
smashes into it, casts up over.
Yeah,
And the elevation on the front side is higher than the elevation on the side. So you get a lot more debris and a lot more water that comes off from around the corner. Where it goes once it gets down into the driveway, I'm not 100% sure of the direction it takes to run out.
so it's not a longshore current or flow issue, they don't get washouts of the lawn during the drainage of the storm?
Not during the drainage, no. I think the brunt force of it hits the front, the spray casts up over, the debris lands in that lawn area, and that's what we're looking to solve there.
Okay,
And then as well as by adding rock in the front and making it a sloped area
Yeah.
to break up that wave action and not allow it to simply slam up and over.
Okay.
So it's all an improvement.
oh, yeah, sure, I see. So, while I was thinking about this, I was wondering whether the owner had any interest in, behind the seawall that you're building, your riprap wall, having a retaining wall that would, he could backfill with topsoil that would bring the lot level up to the same level as the base of the house, wherever that is. That wouldn't solve all the problems, but it might reduce the amount of water that gets back there during some storms. You don't have to answer now, I'm just saying, think about it.
Yeah, it's something to think about,
So,
okay?
I don't really care about that too much. So anyway, are you providing any guarantees to the homeowner about the effectiveness or suitability of your proposal for solving whatever problem he has?
So we met on the site with Proc Marine, and they've been hired to do the work. Sean Toohey is the contractor for Proc, and that arrangement would be between them. My interaction is a mix between both individuals, between the property owner, them, and these are designed for permitting purposes.
So no guarantees, okay, that you know of. So, okay. So I guess my last, well, I have several other questions, but they're not gonna make any difference. But my only other suggestion would be, so your plan is to drill well, okay, you have an existing seawall, vertical seawall, which is made from stones and grout.
Mhm.
Okay, so when you start drilling that, you're gonna drill it to put a pin in to hold up your granite blocks, right? So my thought is you're gonna be using some sort of hammer drill, so, there could be damage to the wall which would degrade the support of the granite slabs. So my suggestion is that you have a provisional detail of how to support the granite in case the wall deteriorates during construction. That way you don't have to think about it when you're on site. That's all.
Thank you.
Anyway, you can imagine there's all sorts of simple things to do, but you may want to have a provisional
Right,
solution ready.
yeah.
And I will say that unless the granite is fractured internally, it will be strong enough that you can support it from a single midpoint. But of course, you can support it in multiple points or on each end, but it's strong enough to support in the middle.
Mhm.
So, that's it.
Very good.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, why don't we reopen the public hearing that we continued last time? So, if there's anyone here who would like to make a comment? Anybody raising a hand or anything? Okay, so we're completely closing the public hearing, and I will take a motion.
I move to approve the application.
I'll second that.
Okay,
I approve.
I approve.
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 Okay. So, and you'll have a,
Oh, yeah, I have the finding of facts next time.
you actually have a finding of facts already?
Next time.
Oh, next time. Oh,
Yeah.
Sometimes you have it already. Okay, so we'll
Thank
read
you all
the
very much.
FOF
Thank you,
next time.
Mr. Simmons.
All right, that brings us to item 230801, Seaside Hotel Associates, Northampton Resort. And Tina is back.
Well, hello there.
Hello.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see everyone. I'm Tina Hewitt-Gordon. I'm the general manager at the Northampton. Thank you for re-reviewing the initial application. I apologize that I had a few errors on the original application, but I did amend those, emailed those off to April, and she assured me that she would send those on to you for your review. Did you receive those?
Yes.
Okay.
I received an amended application, but I didn't see the changes on the amended application.
I made the change. There was two things that were incorrect. I had, on page 2, the type of sewage disposal, I erroneously checked off private septic instead of the public sewer, and the water supply by the public KKW instead of the private well.
That was emailed.
I'm sorry?
That was.
Yeah, that was
Right,
on
yeah,
email.
that, and then you had also indicated, Nina, I believe that there was on the deed information, this is a very old deed, that it didn't indicate the, what tax map it was on, so I wrote that in there.
It's not tax map. It's a book and page. Allow me to give you the book and page. That's your planning board working on your application for you. I figured you didn't know what it was, so. Okay, the book and page is up at the top.
Perfect. I've never had to supply that. Thank you for showing me. May I have that copy, or do you want me to, I can take a picture of it?
That's
and send it?
yours, that's yours. You can
Thank you very
add
much.
that to the portfolio.
Okay.
And I would like you to check off that you're a corporation in good standing. That wasn't checked off on there.
Okay. Very good. Take care of that. You had also posed some questions that I was not as versed as I should have been in describing the project. So with me this evening is Jeff Oliva, who will be able to answer all of your questions. So I'm going to ask Jeff to come on up to be able to describe the work that's going to be done on the back lawn, obviously pending your approval and the DEP approval. So Jeff's right behind me.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Oliva. I'm with Civil Consultants here, helping the Nonantum with this project. So what we have here is a fill project that we're proposing along the back lawn area of the resort that over the years has subsided due to the type of soils that are out there in this area. Several years ago, another consultant came in and they tried to address some stormwater drainage in this area. They received a DEP permit to do some underground storage for stormwater and discharge that. It seems to be working okay, but didn't address any of the subsidence and the lowering of the lawn area in this location of the resort. As a result, over the years, the resort has had to put astroturf down on the ground because it's not a safe situation for guests during the year. And what happens on some of the high tides, that clay soil still holds the water material, the water in that area. So what we're proposing to do is just make some slight grading changes in this area to raise the grade, to have it mimic and be consistent with the remaining area of the resort. The way we're proposing to do that is to strip off the topsoil that's there, look at that material, bring in sand material. The material for fill will be clean sand, and then there'll be sod placed on top of that to raise that area. That reduces the potential for having to wait for erosion with seeds taking and working that way. We're within the shoreland, so we've got a contractor that is licensed with DEP for shoreland, obviously. We have indications on our plans as well as what's needed for temporary erosion control on that section. Tina gave me some comments from the initial meeting. There were some concerns about what this fill may or may not do to the existing riprap. That's the seawall along the area near the docks and the marina section. The idea here is there's really going to be no impact on that. If we look at the way the grades happen, we're not changing the top of that riprap seawall at all, and the way that lawn ties into it, it's going to stay relatively consistent before that grade starts to come up and plateaus and blends back in with the remaining area of that section of the property. As we look at, as part of the project in here, there's a small section of that rock riprap that needs to be maintained and revised, and part of that happened when the abutter put in their seawall. Some of that work manipulated and kind of gummed up the area on there. So part of our repair through the DEP, which doesn't need a permit for the DEP to do that small repair, but we included it in our overall package to the DEP for this work because we're working within 25 feet of the high water line, and we've got additional work within the 75 foot of the edge of the hat line.
So you're not repairing the wall, you're just bringing in more riprap?
We're going to repair that. There may be a couple granite blocks that need to shore up in that section, but we're going to reuse the blocks that are there. There's a couple of blocks that look like they have broken or slipped that we may, once we pull out the existing area, may have to put some other blocks in there just to hold it. It's a very, very small section. It's probably, in length, maybe, if it's 15 feet, that's a lot. And it's really the top 4 feet of that those granite blocks on that edge that need to be reset and just re-supported on that area. I think what happened when they did that wall, as they terminated their wall along the edge, they had to get some excavating equipment in there, and that caused some of that movement potential on that side.
That's between the dock and that?
It's actually it's at the property line on the far
Right, but
side.
There's a dock there?
Yeah, but it's actually
And then
beyond the dock,
right,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
then it goes towards the other property.
That's right, yeah. The rehab work isn't even gonna come anywhere near close to the platform dock that goes out.
Is
It's
that in the
really on
north, the north part of it?
Let me pull up my plan and I'll get you a direction. Yeah, that would be the north side, the north property line along that
Can
edge.
Can you point out on the,
Yeah, so
Plan.
I am going to, it is right in this area here on the plan. We have this wall that came in on the abutter side that they rebuilt, and some of that rock and, has moved in here. And I say rock, it's really boulders, it's big, pieces that were really fit into that slope. And you can see in the pictures, I think, well, in the DEP application, we have pictures in there, you can see what that looks like.
it would be
think if we're
good if
familiar with
you included the DEP
Yep.
permit in the application,
Yep.
so we could see that.
Hey, is the idea, I was out walking it today and was down there, and the whole slope from the building, everything runs down. I'm not sure where your drainage from the building's coming. And you get a real dip there. Are you gonna bring it so that surface runoff goes all the way over your wall?
Yes, I'm gonna move out front. Can you
Yeah.
still hear me, or do I have to worry about a
carry that
microphone?
Take the
I'll take it
microphone
with
with
me.
you.
All right.
It's like Frank's not.
But it looked, there was definitely call it a pond, a pool area.
Yeah, right now, the way there's a dip in here and everything kind of runs off on this side. With the fill we're doing, because everything kind of naturally goes this way, and it kind of pitches all through this way. With the platform that we're proposing to match the grades is gonna make this more level, so any kind of rainwater that hits here is gonna shed and be more distributed along the face of the wall as opposed to being pigeoned into this corner.
Yeah, because I think even you got the stuff running down the driveway from the road, from the service
Yep,
entrance.
yep.
That whole area that's paved, all that feeds into this.
That all feeds into that, and our intent here is and that really even comes more from here as you walk up
Yeah,
on this
both-
side.
both sides.
The idea is really to flatten this area out. Over the years, that has subsided. You can see in the plan, this is where they had previously installed the underground chambers to help some of that flow off of here. Those chambers are gonna stay. We're gonna inspect them to make sure that they're not clogged, or take a look at those when this work happens. But that is all gonna remain. Our area here is really just to strip the topsoil, bring sand in, and just level off that space for safety aspects of it. It's not for flood control or that. The benefit with it is what it does is it prevents, it reduces stormwater that goes on the abutting property here. It makes it more even distribution for the water that naturally runs to the river to flow over this area here.
So how many foot of fill are you looking at?
How many cubic feet of fill?
No, how high are you?
Yeah, so if we look at here, this kind of blends back into this because we're not gonna change the pavement. As we look in here, it's really just a skim coat. About halfway through, it's about 8 to 10 inches, and at its highest, it's about 1.25 feet. Maybe a little bit more than that in some of these low areas, but the way it blends back in, it's really, if you're gonna average it, about 1 foot.
Because it really looked like there was a rise coming to the seawall.
Yeah, there is, and that's really in this section here, but not on this side. So what I'm looking to do is have that be level and then just gently taper into where the top of the rock on the riprap is of that placed rock wall on that side. So I don't want to bulge it over. I want to blend it back in and then taper it back out.
So your elevation is going to increase somewhere between 8 to 10 or 12 inches.
Yeah, I think on average, if I look at what that is, it's gonna probably be around the whole area about, 12 less than 12 inches of fill. Because this contour here is a 9. If you look at the plans, there's like a 9 that runs through here, so it's really,
What depth of sand are you going to have and how much of the topsoil mulch?
yeah, so if we look at the sod, we're gonna consider the sod, and that's probably about 3 inches. And then the sand will be whatever we need to blend in after we take out the initial topsoil that's there. We're gonna scrape the affected area and get rid of the grass in that material there. That's probably gonna be a couple, 3 inches, at least anyways, to get down into that clayey soil. We wanna make sure that we've got it situated so that we're not gonna create kind of an underground rivulet to allow that water to go. We want that smooth, because that water, the rainwater will perk into that sand a lot better than the clay, obviously. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to use clean sand out here, is just to be able to absorb some of that water so that it slows down some of that flow.
So you're probably going to add at least 3 inches of sand or more.
Oh, at least, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so if I look at, let's just say we're gonna call it an average foot of addition. I'm gonna take out about 3 inches of topsoil below, a foot of sand, and 3 inches on top to get to that foot. You follow me?
Yeah, so you're bringing up the elevation, say a foot.
Yeah,
But
but I'm
you're
cutting
really- you're
I'm cutting 3
out
inches.
and then
Yeah.
adding the sod
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Got it.
So you're
So really it's a
basically
foot.
adding 15 or so?
If I, let's just call it a foot, because that doesn't include what we need to remove to get to that area.
You said you had a soil erosion control plan?
Yeah, we show on our plan where we are gonna have our mulch berm on that side, and we have details on our plans that indicate some of the erosion control measures that need to be on here. And so if we look at our plan, you can kind of see this dashed line that has squares in the middle. If I come up here, I can, yeah, I think, yep, you've highlighted it on your sheet. That is where that mulch berm is.
Okay, going to be interesting if that works.
Yeah, I think it will work. Yeah.
Until we
Well,
get that 100-year storm.
I have a few questions and comments. So I also have wandered over to the Nonantum. I live about a quarter mile from there, so I did go over on several occasions to take a look at it, when it was raining, after some rain, and, when it was drier. So I was glad to hear you say you're gonna add sand. You're gonna rip up some soil and add sand. That's wonderful, because that clearly is what's needed. And I'd suggest about 50% sand or so. You need a bunch of sand in there.
Yeah.
I don't know who put that clay in there, but that is what could be hurting you. So anyway, the other thing I noticed, and we heard about it last week, is there is a tank, a subterranean tank, which apparently collects rainwater. Okay, how does the water get out of that tank?
Yeah, so there is a piping system that runs out of this system out into here, and it discharges out into the rock wall itself. It has a backflow valve on it, so that when the tide comes up, it doesn't
Okay.
back into the system.
So, and so the water in that tank flows out. Are you sure that's all working? Is the tank full,
Well,
tank empty?
the tanks that they use are concrete chambers like you would use in a septic system
Yeah.
with piping. So one of the things, we think it's working, but we will know once we start scraping the area in here to take a look at it.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that I'll be doing while on site with the contractors, to take a look at that. And I wasn't involved with this project when it was installed, but as I look at the plans and understand it, it was installed in here really to help address some of the additional development that was going on back here, where there was the addition of the elevator and those aspects.
That was fairly recently, wasn't
Yeah, I think 2000, but it's longer than you think ago. I think it was maybe 2015.
So is
Some
it-
of us have been on the board forever.
Yeah, time goes by. Yeah, so we started right after, working with Nonantum right after that, and our project number is a 15 job number, so I think that happened in 13 or 14.
so
If you
so
had-
basically, it's stormwater retention.
Yeah, that's what that is, yep. That's what those underground chambers are for, to help address some of the development area that was going on back here when they built the elevator addition.
Are they open or closed?
They're closed. You walk over it, you don't see it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You have a little green cover where the
Yeah, there's some of
rainwater
those,
runs.
yeah, the green covers on
Yeah,
that,
I
yeah.
saw that. So I'm glad to hear you're going to inspect that, because it seemed to me, without having any detailed knowledge, that your seawall is acting as a retaining wall, right?
Correct.
And it seemed to me that the displacement of some of the boulders could be due to soil movement.
I think it is, and I think that the movement that we're seeing out here in this corner is really where it is.
You have some other stones that have moved too.
There are some other areas, but this is really the worst situation that we're gonna address now.
I noticed, yeah.
Is really caused by this construction.
Well, and of course, okay, so I'm building up to something here.
Sure.
So, because it acts as a retaining wall, and of course, at various times it's completely inundated when you get really high tides, and sometimes it's like about a 12-foot drop or something. I mean, it's quite impressive. I mean, that is an impressive seawall.
Yep.
So, on retaining walls, you have, in this location, you have three forces. You have the soil pressure, you have water pressure if it's saturated, if it doesn't drain properly, and then you have surcharge. The surcharge is just the weight that you're gonna add. You're gonna add surcharge. It's just dead weight. Okay, we don't have to debate that right now,
Yeah.
but that's what's gonna happen. So, what I'm suggesting is that the movement of the soil could be due to the soil the soil has retained water. The soil is retaining, maybe it's rainwater. I mean, the clay is definitely, you might want to think about ripping up all of the clay out there, because that will retain retain water and exert water pressure on the wall.
Yep.
So my suggestion is that when you're digging around on the site, you might want to double check where the water level is, the groundwater level. And if you find it close to the surface, then definitely you have water pressure on those rocks.
Yep.
That is the retaining wall. So when you're digging, you need to continue to assess the site after you begin excavation, right? You may want to just think about putting in a French drain system. And by this, of course, the optimum time to put a French drain system in is when the wall is being built. Of course, this is an unusual situation because it's a seawall and it's a retaining wall. But you might want to start relatively deep, maybe 4 feet down, slope it 1 inch every 10 feet. Run it where you've got parallel to the wall. Starting, you've got that big rectangular area where there's the grass, which is the area you're going to work in.
Yep.
Run it to the north over toward the area that you want to repair the wall. Turn it, make it a 90-degree bend, and again, put an end cap on it, and then, of course, seal the soil so that when the tide comes in, you don't have backflow into your drainage rock.
Yep.
Drainage rock, 1 to 2 inches, that's ASTM number 3 or number 57, you take the choice, but nothing less than 3/4. Anyway, it's standard, French drain design.
Yep.
But you might want to think about that if you find the soil is retaining a lot of water. Of course, the question then is where you're going to put it. Of course, you're going to want a backhoe to dig the trench. It's got to come in some distance so you don't collapse the wall under the weight of the backhoe. But anywhere in there between your tank and your wall might be a convenient place to put a French drain.
Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely look at that, yeah.
Great,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
So I was very happy to hear about your sand idea.
Yep.
Good, and anyway, that's it.
Yep. No, I'm predominantly a structural engineer, and I do dabble in civil engineering now. But so, yes, no, I'm familiar with that, and that's one of the things that we'll look at. If we look at just the historical soils out here with that, it's very deep clay in
Yeah.
this area, so it's kind of, it's a kind of a hard situation
Yeah.
for us. We're not gonna be able to get rid of it all. Ideally, it'd be great to get rid of it and put it all with clean stone
French drain
and do
system
that.
might help.
Yeah.
Plus, I noticed the last time I was out there, you know, you've got that little lighthouse down the south end?
Yes,
There's some rocks being displaced there.
there's a little bit on that side. I noticed that too when I was out
So
there.
you may
Yeah.
want to think about having a separate French drain
Yep.
in that area, because I did notice the soil seems so dense, so compact. I mean, it's not even silt, I think you're going to find, if you put a French drain system in, it's going to reduce the pressure on the wall, which is going to improve the results
Improve-
of your
yes.
repair to
Yes.
the wall.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the things here is that, like I mentioned, is that once we get in here to investigate that,
Great.
we'll
That is
definitely
wonderful.
work with that
Yeah.
on that side and take a look at what we need to do.
Okay.
Because we're in there with the disruption.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take much to install that, French drain system in there
And of
to
course-
investigate that.
Of course, you know, the other thought I had was you could have one of those little green downspouts, you know, they have them at Home Depot. Just because you'll cover the top of the French drain with sod, but you might want to expedite, but during the times when the site is flooded, you want to expedite the flow into the French drain. Have some, like every 10 feet, have one of those little green drains.
Yeah, they have, like, it's called, yeah, a field inlet.
Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep,
And just take it down to the top of the, because you're going to cover the top of the French drain with non-woven geotextile, right? Just take it down to the top, and it'll help
Oh, good,
expedite the
yep.
drainage.
yep.
Anyway, I
Yep.
can see you get the idea.
Yep.
Thank you. That's it.
Well, I don't know what a French drain is. You haven't defined that for us yet. But what I was going to suggest, it's probably not as good, but if you're going to more evenly distribute the water coming down along that wall, maybe you ought to consider extending those chambers and pipes out through there, so that water doesn't accumulate on another part of the lawn eventually.
Yeah, and I think the idea here is that the way the area subsided in this area, in this location, it's allowed that water to pond, with our new work being able to make sure that that surface water, rainwater gets off the site and into the river. We're trying to accomplish that with the grade. And we see that further down near the lighthouse, that section works very well. It's really this area here that we can look at, and we can investigate that when we
Yeah.
open this up and see what that looks
I
like.
recognize that, but you're about to add more water to that area. And considering the storms we've had this year, I mean, my rain gauge says we're over 51 inches for the year already, which is 5 inches more
Yeah.
than we normally get. You might consider that there's going to be a lot more water down there, and you might start having a slightly similar problem, and extending those chambers might alleviate that.
Yeah, we can look at that, but I think if we look at the overall scheme of things, since we're not changing the ground cover, there shouldn't be an increase in stormwater runoff due to this change, because we're keeping grass to grass. If anything, we'll probably get a reduction, because we'll have that section where that stormwater, once it hits the new graded area, will be able to percolate into the sand, whereas now it hits that binder layer of the clay and runs off a lot faster.
Right.
So we should be able to slow down. I'm not gonna say it's a lot, it's a minuscule amount, but I think there's gonna be a better system of stormwater drainage in here due to that sand layer of helping us with that section.
Well, it's just a suggestion, but I would reiterate what was said about adding more sand than you plan to
Yeah.
add.
Yeah, I think what we're gonna look at, once we scrape off that topsoil, see what's there and what that is. Our grades are gonna stay the same on the surface, because that's really what it needs to, because it has to blend back into here, into the other adjacent areas. But yeah, we can definitely look and see if there's a need to add more sand based on the soils that we find below it. But that's really where your finished surface is gonna stay as indicated here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike, do you have anything?
Nope, I've been taken care of.
All right, well, I guess we've talked it out here. Is everybody ready to say that this is a complete?
Well, I would say it's a complete application if we there was something else we wanted in there.
Well, they were gonna, you're gonna provide us a copy of,
Yep.
of the DEP.
Yeah, I'll
MDP.
email that to Michelle in the morning. Yep.
Okay.
Super.
Yep.
Yep.
With that caveat, I'd say it's a complete application. I'll make a motion that it's complete with the MDEP permit.
I'll second that.
All right, and so you're in favor,
Approve.
I'm in favor?
Approve.
Approved, Mike's good, okay, so we will have a public hearing next time,
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you.
okay?
Good job. And make sure it's good sand, granular stuff. Not that playground stuff.
Nina.
Yeah, it's on the thing.
Go down to Gooch's.
Yeah.
Grit. Free of fine.
Okay. So our next item is 230803, 54 River Road, Thomas McLean, 2009 Trust, Jim Logan of Longview Partners. Recognize.
Thank you. As Tom said, I'm Jim Logan with Longview Partners. I'm a wetland scientist, soil scientist, septic system designer, and otherwise a project manager that loves to go to planning boards. Happy to be here tonight before you with the simplest, I know George didn't believe, but this is the simplest thing you will ever review from me. What truly, I believe, is a minor subdivision amendment. We've had other occasions to discuss what minor versus major were. I believe minor officially because Nina clarified for me in a past meeting that major meant anything that resulted in a new lot or a new house. In this case, we have no new lots created. We have no new dwellings that will result. We have one applicant that lives at 54 River Road who owns both that lot and the adjoining lot. Those are two lots in a 1991 subdivision approved by this board, a different group of people. An 8-lot subdivision that was known as the PBM subdivision or the Peter B. Mooney subdivision. You might note in your packet, I included an original of the subdivision plan. You look way over on the bottom right, that's a 1991 plan, and if you look way off to the right edge, up high on the plan, you might note that James Logan put a soil scientist stamp on that in 1991.
Oh, well, then we have to question it.
Make me feel pretty old. Well, back in the day, you could get a subdivision approved right on the soils map.
But it's not in color.
No color. And so I have, a blessed occasion to come back to something I worked on in 91. Back in 91, I never realized and didn't all the way until the client, the owner of 54, Tom McLean, came to me with this request to go back to the board to make a lot line adjustment. The reason being, there's a small screen house gazebo type structure. I know all of you are familiar with it. Everybody's driven by that house many, many times. It sits directly across from the golf course. It sits high and proud up on the knoll. Off to the left of the house as you face it, and the house is kitty corner to the road, not parallel to the road. The gazebo way off to the left, if you look hard on your original subdivision plan, is a little tiny square box, just a little bit off of the home lot. And it was, I asked the question at that time, what's the problem with just picking it up and moving it? But my client was adamant. Now they're preparing, as you might have driven by, there is a for sale sign in front of the vacant lot, subject to your approval and this lot line revision that will result in the gazebo staying on the lot with the home. And more importantly, perhaps, was the row of very large apple trees and the lawn, because and in our vernacular, we would say that's the line of occupation, not necessarily the property line. So what the client came to me with a request to do was to revise the lot line to make it more consistent with the line of occupation, which the original engineered plan did not do. So that's why we're here today. Again, no change to dwellings, no new lots. We swap, if I flip this over.
Same to same. Yeah. Square footage, yeah, same square
And
footage.
that is Patrick Johnson's revised plan. Pat is sitting over here to my right and can answer any technical questions on the survey. What this plan did was swap something like 25 feet in the front for a trapezoid of about 40 feet wide at the back. That was in order to accommodate the wetlands. We remapped wetlands. I wanted the board to know that. The original work was in 91. We remapped and redelineated both lots so that the new area calculations would reflect the existing conditions out there. And those area calculations have been revised, and they are shown. Both lots still meet the 40,000 net lot area. And I got confirmation from code enforcement that that small gazebo structure does in fact meet the definition of structure. And we've got it just inside the setback line. So the adjusted line accommodates that in minimal fashion, okay? Also has the big apple trees right on the lot line, which is just what he was looking to do. Nothing else is affected by this change. And so I might ask, I'm assuming that this board probably doesn't care to have a site walk because you're familiar with it? Not worthy of a site walk?
Unless you want to get hit by golf balls.
No. That's right.
I would say probably not.
Tom and Penny can invite us in.
I'd love to have more to build, but in this case, probably not.
It's
So-
hard to resist, though, a sidewalk with Jim. I mean, you know, we've had such a wonderful time
It's a loca-
sidewalking with you in the past.
You know, it's an easy location for a site walk, I'll put it to you that way. You know, it's almost like a drive-by. You could, it's like a drive-by shooting.
And it's
You
apple
just-
picking time.
Yeah, right?
So
and
is
I
there
didn't-
a septic or well?
This whole area is served by public water, so
It's
wells
public
are
water.
non-issues. The septic location, which was initially approved for this lot, is still valid, given the lot line change.
Okay.
And I have, in fact, in order to make the sale of the lot easier, prepared a septic design for the vacant lot in the location, essentially as the original site plan showed. Your original subdivision plan shows those locations. They're not impacted by the modest lot line change.
Okay, it won't affect any driveway going in there that you're taking off some frontage.
No, there's still ample room for a driveway. My guess is that driveway will be to the left of the leach bed location as we show it.
Yeah.
The leach bed is off to the right as you face that vacant lot.
Are you going to complete the application then? You're missing the deed.
There's not a deed in there? Okay. That's easy. We can add a deed.
Yeah, 'cause I think the lot's owned by
Two deeds presumably.
two deeds, well, if another deed has been made.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that they were included, but my apology. Yeah, you definitely have to have a copy of the deed. I was going to beg the question about a public hearing in the event that there's
Have
no
the deed For
abutters.
the public hearing.
Right.
squared
There will
away.
be a public hearing, despite the fact that no abutters are affected?
Yeah,
We
we
okay,
always have public hearings, you know that.
okay.
Except occasionally, when we had a one for
It's a rush
your
job.
last major guy, we did
Yeah.
manage to skip the
Okay.
final one.
Okay, I will happily, attend a public hearing if that's needed. Is it possible that we might schedule that in one more meeting and I prepare,
would be-
provide the deeds for you?
We would
Good,
expect that,
good.
Yep.
if we can figure a way to make this complete and then have
Okay.
my question is that somehow the three initials there, RBM or whatever they are,
PBM?
yes, they need to find their way into the title of this. Because
Oh,
the
yes,
subdivision amendment to
Yep.
PBM of lots 2 and 3, right?
okay.
Yeah.
We can add that in the plan reference.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it still has to refer back to the 91 plan by name. and that was the name of
And,
the 91.
and the application as well as the plan, correct? Because his plan, I don't think his plan refers to the Peter B. Mooney subdivision either. If it's a,
It just calls them lots 2 and 3 and not of what, so, yeah.
okay, we can do that for clarification.
Can they send us a sticker to put on there? Rather than print out more. I always wonder about these plans, you know, the cost of them.
Yeah.
I can't see, where do I still?
Okay, so,
I have no more questions.
no more questions?
No questions.
No,
Okay, can I have
Okay.
a motion? I guess I'll move that it's complete,
okay.
Provided a deed is,
provided we,
get a
get the
deed.
deeds and we change the name to mention PBM lots 2 and 3.
There we go.
So done. We'll get those back to April just as quick as we can.
I'll second
Okay.
that motion.
Okay,
Okay,
I approve.
approve?
Approve.
Approved.
Okay. So we will see you next time with the slight modifications here.
Okay, we appreciate, thank you for your time and your attention.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Well, I think
Wow.
we should close that.
thank goodness.
Oh, what type
So
of app?
our last item,
Okay, thank you.
our last item
I'm Jeff.
is 230702, Richard and Mary Steiger, 11 Wildwood.
Yep, here we
And this
go.
is a finding of facts by Mike.
I don't have a copy.
Oh,
You don't have a copy?
Sorry, I could have ran them down there, Mike.
yeah, that was,
You want
Finding
to
of
sign
facts.
it?
Yeah.
11 Wildwood Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine.
Get to the microphone,
Following.
please.
Following, site plan review pursuant to Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on August 2nd, 2023, and August 16th, 2023, and a public hearing held on the 6th of September. Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of facts and conclusions, and renders the following decisions subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The owners of record are Richard T. Steiger, Family Irrevocable Trust, and Mary H. Steiger, Family Irrevocable Trust, with a mailing address of 10740 Plazio, Unit 306, Fort Myers, Florida, 33913. The applicants are Amy C. Noonan and Emily E. Gregory, trustees both trusts, with a mailing address at 10740 Plazio, Unit 306, Fort Myers, 33913. The property has a street address of 11 Wildwood Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046. The property is identified as map 35, block 23, lot 10 on the municipal tax assessor's map. The property is located in the Goose Rocks and Shoreline Protection Zones. The applicants demonstrated legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed for the property recorded in the York County Register of Deeds, books 8,891, pages 299, on June 30th, 1998. The property comprises approximately 5,735 square feet per information provided by the applicants, and is therefore non-conforming since it is less than the 40,000 square feet. The existing residential property consists of one building which conforms neither to setback distances, nor lot size, nor area dimensions. In the application dated August 9th, 2023, applicants propose to demolish the existing residence and rebuild a new single residential structure. Under section 8.3B1, expansion of non-conforming structures of the LUO, applicants propose to expand both volume and interior square footage, floor area of the new residence structure, while also slightly reducing the overall lot coverage. The proposed expanded area and volume both remain within the maximum allowable expansions of 30% each. The total existing interior surface area of the existing building is 1,767.25 square feet. The proposed interior surface area will be 2,022 square feet, an increase of 14.45%. The total existing interior volume is 16,531.5 cubic feet, and the proposed interior volume will be 21,457.6 cubic feet, an increase of 29.8%. The existing lot coverage is 40.8%, and the proposed lot coverage will be decreased slightly to 38.5%. The property is connected to the public sewer and to the public water supply. The applicants request no submissions or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Because this property is entirely within the Goose Rock Zone and the shoreline zones, the owners agreed to avoid the use of synthetic artificial fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides on the lawns, and to maintain provisions intended to minimize bird strikes on the windows. Pursuant to requirements of Article 10.10A of the Land Use Ordinance, Guidelines for Discussion, the Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings which would otherwise compel denial. A, the proposed use meets the definition or specific requirement set forth in the Land Use Ordinance and will be in compliance with the applicable state and federal laws. Finding yes. The proposed use will not create a fire safety hazard and will provide adequate access to the site or to the buildings on the site for emergency vehicles. Finding yes. The proposed exterior lighting will not create hazards to motorists traveling on adjacent public streets and is adequate for the safety of the occupants or users of the site and will not damage the value or diminish the usability of adjacent properties. Finding yes. The provision for buffers and on-site landscaping provide for adequate protection to the neighboring properties from detrimental features of development. Finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the use and peaceful enjoyment of abutting properties as a result of noise, vibration, fumes, odor, dust, glare, or other causes. Finding yes. The provision for vehicle loading and unloading and parking and for vehicle and vehicular and pedestrian circulation on the site and on to adjacent public streets will not create hazards to safety, finding yes. The proposed use will not have a significant detrimental effect on the value of adjacent properties, which could be avoided by reasonable modifications of the plan, finding yes. The architectural style of the proposed two-story house and attached ADA access compares well to the others in the immediate neighborhood. The design of the site will not result in significant flood hazards or flood damage, and is in conformance with applicable flood hazard protection requirements, finding yes. Adequate provisions have been made for the disposal of wastewater or solid waste and for prevention of ground or surface water contamination. Finding yes. It's on the public sewer. Adequate provisions have been made to control erosion and sedimentation. Finding yes. Erosion control measures will be provided in due course as part of the building permit process. Adequate provisions have been made to handle stormwater runoff or other drainage problems on the site. Finding yes. The proposed water supply will meet the demands of the proposed use or for fire protection purposes. Finding yes. It's on public water. Adequate provisions have been made for the transportation, storage, and disposal of hazardous substances and materials as defined by state law, not applicable. The proposed use will not have an adverse impact on significant scenic vistas or significant wildlife habitats, which would be avoided by reasonable modification of the plan. Finding yes. The owner agrees to maintain provisions to minimize bird strikes on windows. Existing off-site ways and traffic faculties can safely and conveniently accommodate the increased traffic generated by the development as far away from the development as effects of development can be traced with reasonable accuracy. Not applicable. When a proposed development will be located within the shoreline zone or resource protection zone, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, and town-wide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7, approval of development will also require that board makes positive findings based on information presented that the proposed use will maintain and healthful conditions, finding yes. Will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters, findings yes. The owner has agreed to avoid use of synthetic artificial herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers on the property. Will adequately provide the disposal of all wastewater, finding yes. Will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat, finding yes. Owner has agreed to incorporate measures to reduce bird strikes into the new design. All exterior windows shall utilize such measures as exterior screens, bird-proof glass etching, and visual striping. Will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland and coastal waters, findings yes. Will protect archaeological and historical resources as designated in the comprehensive plan, not applicable. Will avoid problems associated with flood plan development and use, finding yes. in conformance with the performance standards set forth in section 5.6, erosion and sediment control of the Kennebunk land use ordinance, finding yes. Any negative findings by the board means the application has been denied, the application is otherwise complete. In conclusion, Articles 10.10.a of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve the site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial. As noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision. The site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval, if any, pursuant to Articles 10.11 and 10.12E. 1. The application pursuant to 10.12E shall notify the planning board prior to transfer of rights to construct the approved project. 2. Final approval from the town of Kennebunk for erosion control provisions must be provided and meeting the land use ordinance requirements enforced by the code enforcement officer before building permit can be issued for this project. Applicants agree to avoid use of synthetic and artificial pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers on this lot. Precautions against bird collisions as described above will be maintained. The applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the York County Register of Deeds before any permits may be issued or before any construction may commence. The applicant shall comply with all terms and conditions of the town of Kennebunkport ordinances as well as the main DEP approvals dated the 20th of September, 2023. Here ends the lesson.
Okay.
Here, sign away.
I move that we accept that document as read.
Second.
I approve.
Approve?
Approve.
Approve.
Okay. All right,
another-
one other thing, I neglected
another
to
copy?
assign a case manager
Are there two
for
copies?
for Mr. Logan's item, and I'll take it.
Okay. Who's taking it?
Michelle, is there another copy of this finding of fact?
There's one coming this way.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Coming down this
Did you
coming
sign
down.
that one?
Did you?
Warner, I have a question
I know
for
it,
you.
you're like the, that's right.
These findings of fact are
Usually stacked together.
printed on both sides of the sheet. Is that going to be a problem for recordation? Will they skip?
It might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the signature page is
signature
on one
page.
Yeah,
page.
as long,
Right,
as long
every
as
single
the,
side.
yeah, as long as the signature
anything.
page is on one, we
Sign
can,
anything.
Yeah.
we can make sure that everything else, you know,
Match.
That
shows up
happens
as,
to be a page 7, so we're good.
yeah,
It worked
Nothing on the back.
well in this case.
yeah.
Once
But,
you
you
get
know,
down.
It's a good-
if it's on two sides, somebody may slip it into a scanning machine
Yeah,
without
and-
looking.
yeah, not hit the two-sided setting,
So may I
yeah.
have another motion here?
Yeah, I'd like to move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We're done.
Okay.
Sir, do you have something you'd like to bring to the board?
Yes, I actually.